A long-term project is going to have its mental hurdles and its physical hurdles, and life can get in the way. But I think, yeah, just stick with it and know it's possible. And one day everything should come together and things will work out.
Curious, did you decide to make it a long-term project, or was it
Dude, I
just,
should have done it like 11 years ago. No, I just kept going back. Like I said, yeah, it just felt like the thing to do, and I felt like I could probably do it one day, and yeah.
yeah, you say persevere. I'm curious, did you have moments where you're just like, screw this, I'm done?
I don't think I did, which is pretty crazy. I never like I had very bad sessions on it. Even last year, after Nathaniel and Charlie left, the temperatures dropped and it was like too cold for me to climb on because I'm just trying one move. And I thought there was no way that like really bad sessions. I wasn't sticking the second jump once or the first jump, and I was like barely staying on the wall. And with good conditions and everything else, that makes a huge difference for me. But never felt like I was going to give up. I just kind of kept going.
Austin Geiman, welcome to the Testpiece podcast, man. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Good, good. I like that you have a climbing wall behind you. I feel like that's like very appropriate. Are you in? You're in your gym, right?
I'm in my attic. So yeah, I have like a little office set up in this space and then a climbing wall
Wait, is
uh,
that the attic of the gym
of
or?
my house. Yeah, sorry, of my house. So yeah, pretty much just have a like a 50-degree overhang back there.
That's not fair. You have a gym that you get to go to all the time, and you have an attic with a wall.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your secret. Okay. Uh, Austin, you've been part of the climbing scene for decades. Not everyone will recognize your name, but you probably know and climb with everyone whose names those people would recognize. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Although, actually, I take it back, man. Instagram blew up recently when you sent Defying Gravity, a hard, beautiful V15 test piece of our generation. Everyone was so freaking psyched for you, man. And that's because on top of it being just one of the most sought after hard lines in the world, your history with it goes back to when it was still a project, and then 11 years and 100 plus sessions later, you sent, congrats, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an amazing experience overall. Pretty crazy just to yeah finally get it done, and really really special for me. So it was a big one, probably the biggest one. It was the biggest one.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
on one of the best boulders out there. Yeah, God, I can't even remember what I was doing 11 years ago. Before we get into that epic journey, which I really do want to hear about, because I got to tell you, man, that boulder has always just stood out in my head as being special ever since. Well, the first footage of it was in on Huntsmen, right? Was that the video
Yeah,
it was
yeah, it was
first
on
on?
Huntsman, and it was me, Daniel. I think Jimmy was in there, and Griff was in there as well,
Oh,
and we were
wow.
all sessioning it together. And yeah, it was really cool.
All-star crew there. Dude, I just watched that clip and Jimmy had so much hair. I
Oh yeah,
forgot
it was
like
big. He had some big hair.
Uh, well, yeah. Before we get into that epic journey, I also wanted to point out that you've ticked a lot of boxes over the years in your climbing resume that most of us only dream about. You've competed in World Cups, nationals, making semifinals and finals repeatedly. You've also developed seriously hard and special boulders in Colorado. You've climbed 514 and Austin, as we mentioned. You're now a V15 boulder. Very
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Got always want to check that. So can we just start out by hearing a bit about how you started climbing and became so obsessed with it that you would do something like dedicate 100 plus sessions to a single boulder problem?
Yeah. I guess it kind of started with my parents. They were climbers actually. They grew up in Indiana. My dad got into caving, so that was kind of the only like kind of rope stuff, management stuff that you could do out there. So he was into caving, and then wanted to move to the mountains. So they got really into climbing back in the '80s, and my dad ended up competing for I think a few years, probably like 5 years or so in the early '90s, back in the Lycra era and everything. So he competed. He climbed like 13D. He climbed V10. So back in the early '90s, it was pretty impressive. But really, just they kind of took me out to the crags. I was exposed to the whole outdoor community, all the climbers, just hanging out under sport climbs for hours and hours and hours. Um, and then eventually, I think I was like 4 years old, kind of started doing it and kept doing it until I was probably 12. Um, After that, took a little break, decided, I think I had a big growth spurt or something, or was getting tall and I was really skinny and really weak and not very coordinated. So kind of moved away from it and ended up finally starting again around 17. And I don't know, I'd been swimming a little bit before that. I was on the high school swim team, and I think it kind of just like gave me some of the muscles back and everything I needed to get going. So then just kind of started climbing, and the technique was kind of still there, and then had to develop all the muscles and fine tune everything, I guess.
Yeah, I told you I had a similar story where I started climbing as a young guy, although my parents did not climb. That's nice. Dude, that's good for your dad climbing V10 in the early 90s. No
Yeah,
joke. That's like
yeah,
magazine
yeah. It was
worthy.
like yeah. It was
Like,
like in Waco tanks and stuff, and we had some like classic areas over here that are closed now, unfortunately. But U Pass is one of the big ones, and he did climbs there. So
what was your dad's name, sir? I want to see if I remember him from being a kid.
it's Rick Geiman. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was when I was climbing. I'll never forget. Do you know Nick Sagar? I can't remember how to say his last name.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember him coming to the gym I was at and teaching a clinic, and he had just climbed 14A, and
Mm-hmm.
we were just like, "Oh,
Whoa.
this guy, this is the guy."
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. And like he was competing with like Kurt Smith, like a bunch of these really old names, like Hans Florine, and
Yeah.
like guys like that from way back when. He competed in like the Snowbird. Have you ever seen photos of the climbing wall they put on the side of the building?
Yep.
He competed in some of those competitions as well. So
All right.
pretty cool.
So you were just born into greatness. All right. Um, so I told you that I had a similar thing where I left climbing around 11 or 12, coincidentally, and we're actually the same age. And you got back into it, you said when you're 17 or 18. And I'm just curious, what actually did draw you back into it?
I don't know. I think kids at that age just like something changes because like being at a climbing gym all the time, you see these high school juniors and seniors are like, oh, I want to try climbing, and then they buy a membership and then they like climb all through college. And I think I probably just had that same kind of mindset or whatever shift that is, and just decided it was time to kind of take it on and see where it goes. And I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because that's such a big break, the 6 years or something. But then in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah, it
it's
was
like
not
nothing.
not a big deal.
I do remember when when I started climbing again, how how much better my technique was than those people around me, and I didn't know what I was doing. You know, when you're young, you don't really well, maybe in today's world they actually really teach kids, but
Yeah,
once
yeah.
you like are like, oh, I have good technique because I'm going to do a drop knee for this move. You just morph yourself to the climb, and there's some beauty in how little kids climb that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's crazy that it just stays with you, like over years and years. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I hate to say this is a bit of a maybe a hot take, but it is really helpful to have climbed as a young person. I feel like I get less finger injuries, even though I also I stopped climbing from maybe 12 to 20 or something like that.
Okay.
But I still have like some kind of deep technique and finger strength. I feel like I almost I got lucky with. I earned as a little kid that I think people who start later sometimes struggle with.
Yeah, I didn't get the fingers that you got, but rest of the body's mostly okay. I've had quite a few pull injuries over the years, but it's just part of it.
Well, maybe because you're pulling on some small grips on V15s, unlike me. Uh, okay, so you get back into climbing in your late teens, but I know that you've done freaking every role in climbing, route setting, coaching. Like what was your? Did you all of a sudden just make your whole life around climbing at 18, or was that kind of a gradual shift for you?
Um, well, my parents own the climbing gym that I own now, so they had like three other or two other business partners, and I started working there when I was 18 and just kind of enjoyed it. Obviously, it's kind of just a fun place to hang out. Then I got really into climbing, kind of got integrated in the community, and finally like started managing it. Um, and I think that was probably in like 2008. And then in, let's see, 2011, City Rock, which is another gym in town, I should mention, my gym, sport or Springs Climbing Center, formerly Sport Climbing Center. Then another gym opened in town, and they were just way nicer, like way bigger, more modern. We were like a small gym, only like 5,000 square feet. We only had like 20-foot walls, and then we kind of adapted into just a bouldering gym. So we kind of redid everything over the years. But yeah, basically 2011, we bought the gym and then just kept working on it. And climbing just then became my life. After that, I started competing. Yes, obviously I had to start coaching, had to start route setting, started managing. And that's kind of, I'm still doing the same thing for the most part. I'm not coaching as much anymore, but um, doing all the other stuff.
And remind me which town this is. I know you're in
Oh,
Colorado, but
yeah, we're in Colorado Springs.
oh,
Yeah,
okay, Springs Climbing Center makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it all lines up.
I do feel like that era, the kind of early teens, or like that 2010 era, climbing really did start to take off as well. It kind of
Yeah,
seemed to be a thing you could do and have a job in. So you timed that well. And competitions. I mean, did you compete as a young kid too?
I did a few. I did youth comps as a kid. I think I did a couple seasons. It was with the JCCA. I think I climbed to nationals once back when it was at a Rocket and Jammin in Thornton when it was like a new gym. So that was probably like 1998 or 99. And then yeah, then didn't compete for a long time. 2011 I think was, or 2010 was the first time I competed in nationals again. That was like 5 or 6 years after I started climbing again. And then 2011 I made finals at nationals for the first time.
Yeah, it's cool to see you get on the whole competition scene too, because I know that in Colorado there is a big outdoor world there, and so you're in Colorado Springs. Have you? Is that where you were always based out of?
Yeah, for the most part. I lived in Pueblo for a little bit, which is south, and I lived in Golden, which is right near Boulder, and climbed up there for a little bit too.
So tons of bouldering in Boulder and Denver area, but Colorado Springs is a little ways away and not, I mean, it's still part of that same geography, really, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, we have some good stuff down here. Yeah, a lot of good areas that a lot of people don't come down to very often, but some, yeah, obviously my favorite areas are down here.
yeah, so you hit my radar in that amazing movie, Huntsman, that I think it's officially from Max Kremer, but I was talking to him and it sounded like you guys were all heavily involved. He did not want to um, say that he was the one exactly leading the whole thing, that was a group effort. And that's now on Vimeo for free. And so I'll link it because I love that video, man. And you guys are in it. All of you guys are developing a ton of stuff in, well, in Colorado Springs area. And
Yeah,
so what was that whole shift like? Like what's developing and outdoor climbing like for you on your journey?
um, I don't know. I just always had the urge to go out and explore a bit. It was really cool when Max approached me for that video because we had been climbing together for a year or so at that point, and he was getting into filmmaking and stuff like that. And it was just like something we just decided to do for fun, and then started to get more serious, and just kind of went from there. Uh, but yeah, just always on Google Earth looking for new areas, trying to find like rock on public land, and that's kind of what I was doing at that time as well. And we luckily found some pretty good stuff, and just other projects that were kind of at existing areas already. So
So had you gone and kind of like cut your teeth more on that stuff up north? Wait, is Colorado Springs south of
yeah,
Denver?
we're
Yeah.
south of Denver and Boulder.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Had you spent a bunch of time up on all that classic Front Range stuff and
yeah,
Rocky Mountain?
yeah. I spent a lot of time in Rocky Mountain and Mount Evans, and it's like not my style of climbing at all. So I really try and I don't go up there much anymore. I should, but smaller holds, more body tension, that kind of stuff is difficult for me. So I had kind of a heyday. I did like um, what was it? Oh, Marble Sit I did marble sit, and that's like hard for me. Um, but mostly, yeah, I've been down here just like finding boulders. There's just so much to do down here.
I'm just curious, like, I know you say you roam Google Earth, but can you just like kind of take me through what that like there's a big step between finding something on Google Earth, which is like, oh, it looks like there's rocks here, and then releasing a video of tons of badass stuff at an area I went to, like Newland Creek. I've been there and loved it. And like that's a I don't know. I don't want to jump from like seeing a little pixel on a screen to like making sick videos of double digit badass climbs. Like, what does that whole journey look like?
Well, that area was mostly developed by the time we released that video, so a lot of climbs were just reclimbed. But that was a crazy area because you can't see anything on Google Earth. It's like forest, you know. So all the boulders are blocked by trees, and it's in like a pretty narrow canyon. So a lot of light from Google Earth isn't like even showing up. It's just shadows. But yeah, basically that area was in an old guidebook. It's called the Ripper, I think, and it just mentioned boulders on the trail. So we went and just like looked at some boulders, and then like it just kept going and going and going, and then it developed into a whole area, which was, yeah, like really really cool. And like Hayden Miller was involved, like Justin Yeager was involved, like a bunch of people were. Andrew Rockstead, I don't want to leave anyone out, but a lot of people were just, really psyched to do new climbs, and it just kind of blew up for like one season, and we did so many climbs, and then there's like still new stuff going up, but it's mostly tapped out.
Yeah, I think I was there right around the heyday, I guess, of it, because I was at competing at nationals, and then we drove down there for a day, and it always blows me away when I go to a new area and it's just kind of right off the road. Like the approach was like, I can't remember. It was not bad. It was
Yeah,
very
yeah, it's like
right
20
there.
minutes or something. Yeah, and you get to like the first boulder is a Uniqueness boulder, and it's just like a massive boulder with seven double digit climbs probably on it or something like that.
Yeah,
So
quality too. Yeah,
yeah,
like so in Huntsman, I believe that was the first footage of Defying Gravity. Am I right? I
yeah,
couldn't I couldn't
yeah.
find anything else.
I think it probably is. I don't think I had Instagram at the time or anything, so, and I don't think anyone did. Max didn't either, probably. But yeah, we filmed, and yeah, he put it all on Huntsman, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so uh, I I vividly remember that clip of, you. I mean, it was a big deal of how you like stuck it and then like swung around. So Defying Gravity has these big jumps, and the first one seems to be the crux from what I can gather watching. And
Yes.
you had this like wild stick, and then kind of like did like a 180 to grab it, and I think like at that time that looked really futuristic to me, man.
It was
Like,
awesome. Yeah.
so uh yeah, can you tell me a little bit about like the history of the boulder? Like, did you find it, and just how did that all go?
Yeah. So I'll just go over. I know like that boulder is probably found a long time ago. By that area was like a trad area and a sport area before it was a bouldering area. But I was first turned onto it by Hayden Miller. He had gone up there and put up quite a few boulders, and he just mentioned the project, and I went up and tried to find it a couple times, but it's pretty hard to get to. You're just like walking towards a crag, and then you walk up this giant slab. It's kind of like the chains in Waco. You're like walking up a big slab, and then you enter a narrow corridor, and then you take a left, and you just see like a 55-degree overhang with like two perfect rails on it, and it's just tall and big, and the landing's like nice and flat. Um, yeah, and basically just started projecting it. I had like two pads up there my first day, and I was like trying to the first jump, and um, just kept trying and trying and trying, I guess.
How'd you prep that thing, or did Hayden prep it? Like, did you guys wrap down? I mean, it's tall, and
Mm-hmm.
then if it's that steep, God, I didn't even realize it was that steep. The videos never do steepness
Yeah, I think it's
justice.
somewhere between like 50 and 55, so it's very steep, and that's what makes it so difficult. Obviously, if it was on a 40, it would be V8, V9.
What did you think when you first looked at it? Were you like, oh, this is, I mean, first of all, yeah, tell me how it looked, like how it felt when you saw it, but then did you think it was going to be super hard, or what was your read on that?
Yeah, I had no idea. I was I had done some development before that. That was probably before I did most of my developing. Um, but really just like saw the holds. The catch hold's pretty good. So I was like, okay, and I still have to get to it. The start hold's really bad. The start hold's like sloping. There are a couple like sweet spots on it, but it took me a long time to figure out how I wanted to even pull on and how to keep the foot, stuff like that. I had no idea on the grade. I was guessing V14 because that was like crazy to me at the time that I could even be climbing on a V15. So really weren't a whole lot around. But yeah, I think really just like figuring out the body position and how to pull on the rock and then just generate to get to that hold was the hardest part for me, and ended up like sticking the move within probably 5 or 10 sessions. Um, but then everything kind of went downhill after that, I guess, because it took another 10 years or so.
Man, I love that tenacity. I definitely want to hear more about that. And I, when did Jimmy and Daniel enter into, like, was it this open project that everyone knew about? Were you just kind of solo on it for a while? Other than, I mean, I'm surprised. Was Hayden psyched on? Because I know Hayden's a great climber as well.
Yeah, I think Hayden, just wasn't the type of style of climbing that he was looking for. He was really into like crimping and body tension and stuff like the stuff that I'm not very good at. But I believe he tried it. But I think, yeah, basically I was working on it and we were shooting Huntsmen, and Max invited Daniel down to try it. And then I think he recruited Jimmy as well. And we just started sessioning it. And so I was like really trying to get it done before Daniel was coming down. And that's when I did stick the move. Um, but I think like the next session, the foothold broke that I jump off of, which changed the whole thing for me. And that's probably why it took so much longer for me to do. There used to be like a little textured bump at the end of the foothold, and now it's just like you're pressing into like a glossy smear. Um, and I just had to basically relearn the whole climb after that happened.
How many hard moves have been stuck because Daniel's coming?
Yeah, I know for real. Yeah, and he was like he was so strong back then, or he still is obviously strong, but he was just like his body tension and his finger strength was just insane. So I knew he was going to do it, and he found the craziest way to do it too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to point out what that grade V15 meant back in the, was it 2013? I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I
it's
think
2013.
2013.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, Jade got done before that. I know it later saw a downgrade. I don't know when Hypnotized Minds got done, but just V15 was still kind of like
Mm-hmm.
kind of how V17 is today, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was fresh, and like that was kind of like the hardest thing that we thought was possible at the time. So
Yeah, that young Daniel era. I mean, he's clearly an incredible climber still, and did incredible stuff since then. But there was some kind of like freak Daniel robotic phase that was a
oh, I
fun thing
know.
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, the way he could clamp his feet on those, like they're tiny glossy edges, and he would just like clamp his feet on, and he would just keep his torso completely still and like do these moves to non-holds, and just make it look so easy.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to do it like that again. It'd be impressive.
So let's go back to when the FA was being vied for, and you're in the mix. Jimmy shows up, Daniel shows up. I don't know, maybe there. Well, it sounds like Griff was out there too. Like one of the interesting things about that problem, and we've seen evolve over the years, is how many different ways there became to do that move. And it sounds like, yeah, maybe you can describe the way you did it, and then re-describe kind of how Daniel ended up actually snagging that FA.
Yeah, because I'll talk about the first time I stuck the move. I was starting matched. That's how Noah starts for the campus, and how Colin started. So they start matched, and they just campus. The way I was starting matched and putting my right foot on the foothold and jumping, and that created like a pretty violent swing. So the time I did stick it, I kind of had to push off the wall to like correct the swing and then come in and match. Um, but I could never duplicate that. I don't know what happened that day. It just like something worked and I felt good. But so that goes then to Daniel's beta, where he starts on like a slightly more left hold and the same right hand hold. And I don't know all the details about it, but he gets some crazy clamps, hits this mini pinch, and is able just to like basically it's like a ghost hold. He's just like touching it, and then he just uses his lower hand to like push and generate and get to the good catch hold.
And he keeps his feet for that too, right? Doesn't he? Didn't his
He
feet?
did cut. I think he
Okay.
cut like at the last second, but he was like pretty established on the hold that he just could one arm hang that hold.
Okay, we should just describe. Yeah, I think everyone knows Defying Gravity. I mean the internet blew up, 10 years ago when it happened, and then recently it's been blowing up again and again. But just maybe you could kind of like outline maybe like some of these basic features on Defying Gravity and what makes it kind of unique.
Yeah, I think obviously it's steep. Uh, the start hold is very polished. It's kind of glassy, and it has a couple like a couple tiny ridges, little sweet spots on there. Um, but I think a lot of people just think, oh, like if you get to that hold, it's pretty good, and you can just do whatever you want, like hang or whatever. But really, the challenge is finding the balance of getting to the hold, not too quickly, not too slow, and you have to be able to use your left hand to slow down the swing. And that, I think I looked it up once. I think it's like it's basically campusing on a campus board from 1 to 5.5. So on a 55. So the left hand basically becomes non-existent, and you're just swinging out from the wall. Your lower body is accelerating like really quickly. Your left hand just wants to rip off. So if you jump too much, it comes off immediately. If you don't jump enough, you're going to short this hold and not engage your shoulder enough to hold the swing. So there's like so many variables that make it difficult, and I think that's why it's V15. I don't know, but then the second jump, you have another like move to a slot, which people fall on now because I was the first one to fall on it for a long time, but it took Colin a few attempts. So he obviously walked the campus.
Yeah, that was. I want to get into that later too, because boy, did he! I love that little clip of him. Really impressive, and it's funny when you have these climbs where the second move or like like the a secondary crux or whatever. When you see people who are basically V17 climbers and they just do it on lock, you don't realize like, oh yeah, like when you can overpower that like V11 stab or something and you have tons of room
Yep.
for air. I don't know. There's something there where there's these climbs that, yeah, they're X grade if you're a X+4 climber,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think what really helps them too is they have like that competition mentality. Like they can be, like hyper focused, which maybe is something I was lacking for so long. But they will just like get up to that move and just be able to like believe and like execute perfectly. Where I think I had nerves and I got just like a little like off and would kind of jump and just like whatever would happen. My left hand dry fired once, and the other time I like hit the roof of the slot and just completely whiffed it. So
Okay, so you stick the crux move. Daniel's on his way. This is 2013. Uh, what's that? What goes through your head then? And you think you're probably, I mean, you can do it. You can do it.
yeah,
Although, yeah, then the foot crumbles.
the
When
foot
did the
the
foot crumble?
I don't know exactly when. It was somewhere right around there. And work was getting crazy. We were like building a new wall at our gym, so I was working construction and trying to get out there. Is like I was like, if I just go every day, I'll be able to do it. And I just like was not taking care of my body. Um, and yeah, I didn't do it. I think that's a big part of it. Is I was just not utilizing like whatever potential rest days I could have had. I was just trying to go up there as much as possible and just give it as many attempts as possible to try and do the boulder. Where, yeah, in hindsight, if I would have approached that a lot differently, I think I may have been able to do it.
Out of curiosity, were you the one who crumbled the foot, or did someone else crumble
I
it?
did. I did. Yeah. I remember just like being so sad that day. No, yeah. Until now, no one liked the jump beta. Like everyone, like Jimmy did the heel hook. Nathaniel did like the jump beta initially, but he thought it would be higher percentage to do the heel hook, which in the end is going to work out for him.
So my hunch is that over the years you tried different beta. What made you settle on the jump beta? Still, I maybe Daniel's beta got quickly put in the
Yeah, that was
category
just
of Daniel.
dismissed immediately. Well, I think just knowing that I could do it and knowing that I had done it before, kind of, I just wanted to stick with it. I did try the heel hook beta quite a bit. Once the foot did break, I kind of changed the start holds and went to Jimmy's start. So there's like kind of multiple starts on this climb, just all on the same rail. So it's a split hand start now. My left hand's on like a decent crimp. My right hand's just on this like blocky pinch. And I put my left foot on instead of my right foot, and then kind of do a pogo and just try and, it makes the swing more opening, kind of like the heel hook. And I think it just gives you more time to like engage the shoulder and like press with the left hand, and everything just felt more balanced that way. So that's kind of what I ended up using. I don't know if it was the best, but the heel hook was definitely an option for me.
Yeah, because you're definitely shaped more like Jimmy than Daniel. Um, did you ever try the just straight up campus beta?
I messed around with it, but that's like that's like the board generation beta. I think they can all just like take any holds they need to and just like campus to a decent hold.
Basically, just described how Noah climbs. That's
Yeah,
what Neil
exactly.
Weir looks like when he climbs. He's just like, I can grab anything on campus. Like, I'm just going to do it. Yeah, yeah. I had noticed I went and I rewatched Huntsman, and then I watched your Instagram footage of you doing it, and I noticed that you were pogoing or jumping off of a different leg, and so I hadn't heard that. Yeah, that foot crumbled, and any other little subtle changes. I guess the reason why I'm asking this question is that most of us haven't projected anything for a long time, and most of us have gotten shut down by moves. And even though you had stuck the move initially, it was no longer the same move. And so I'm just wondering what that process was like over the years, like where you looked to refine things, or was it just kind of, I'm going to go train harder? How did
Yeah.
that balance look?
Yeah. So initially I always thought I need to train harder. I need to get better at just like one arm pull ups and one arm ISOs and grabbing small holds. So I took that approach for a long time, for probably like the first, I don't know, maybe like 6 years. I wasn't going like consistently every year. I probably took 1 or 2 seasons off, but definitely tried to go every season and just kind of check out how it felt. Um, and I was always torn between like my old beta and the new beta that I tried, and eventually just decided to stick with the new beta, even though I hadn't stuck it like that. It just felt like a tiny bit closer, not even really noticeable, but I just felt I had a little more control of my body when I would do it. Um, so really, I just had to stick with that, and I guess not have like minor elbow tweaks, shoulder tweaks, finger tweaks. I just had to be like completely healthy, and really, I guess the training from the previous 5 years had maybe paid off. But I think like the biggest thing is a big mental switch for me was working on it last year with, I think Charlie Barron and Nathaniel were there, and I was feeling kind of close. I was like, okay, because I always thought about it as like projecting, like I'm projecting this climb, I'm projecting the move, I'm figuring out the move, and then eventually I decided, you know what, I think these are like send goes now. Like I'm trying to actually do the boulder, and it wasn't like a natural, or it wasn't a forced thought. I think it was more of like a natural feeling of like, okay, it's finally to the point where I'm able to send this boulder. And then within like 3 sessions of that, I think I had done the jump move again, and then fallen off the second jump, obviously. But I think it was just a big mental switch for me, and it was motivated by having people to climb on it with, and yeah, just talking about beta and talking about holds and body positions and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's something that's always a weird balance to have, where there's this element of just show up, put in the time, like do the work. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to project, but projecting is not sending. And like, how do you switch out? Like, how do you make sure that in your head you're like, no, I'm still working towards this goal of sending, not just kind of playing almost, like
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
it was a big deal, and it took me a long time to realize that I was kind of approaching it not in the best way, and I would always kind of just suss out how it felt and hope it would feel better, but it never felt better. I just had to like actually have the right mindset in order to go through and do the boulder.
Yeah, I wondered about the timing of your send, where Jimmy and Daniel did it back in 2013, and then 10 plus years later, it just no one sends. And then Noah does it, Nathaniel does it, and I think you were the next one to do it. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wondered, like, Was that part of the, was that part, did it help seeing other people have success?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like that's like the big mental hurdle. It's like we can say this like the board community. I don't know. This will just be a way to kind of draw the picture. Is like if your friend does a board climb on whatever tension board, you see it's possible. You get psyched and you want to try harder and you want to try and do what they climbed, and like outdoors like that but amplified. So I see like Nathaniel put in the work, and he's like finding like the most perfect beta. He's like executing the move the easiest. He's looking really good, and I think it took him like 14 sessions, which he's a very strong climber. So I was like, okay, it is a hard climb, um, but he has like that beta unlocked is now in his bag, and he can just like go back to that for the sit start. And just seeing his process and how he approached it, I think really helped me mentally to kind of speed up whatever trajectory I was on, where I was kind of like trying to do the boulder, but not really trying to do the boulder. And I think it's really motivating for me.
Well, it must have been kind of strange how it gets done and then you're going out there each season, it sounds like, but it's not getting done. And the longer something remains unsent, or sorry, unrepeated, other than Daniel and Jimmy, it kind of like, dude, it kind of had like a little mythical status there,
Yeah, I'm not sure why people weren't coming out. I think it was like it's just a little off the radar. Like it's south, pretty far south of Denver. It's not really. It's like 2 hours probably, but the approach is like 2 miles in, 2 miles out. Um,
That's fine for Colorado. That's a
yeah,
total normal Colorado approach.
exactly. But I had heard of people like just popping in and trying it, but no one was like actually trying to do it or project it or spend the time to do it.
Yeah, who did you climb on it with throughout the years? Because it must have. I have a hard time understanding how in Colorado, like one of the most beautiful blocks, one of the most beautiful hard blocks that also looks kind of like friendly to climb on a little
Oh
bit.
yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
The Moskin, yeah. You will like you have to try to get a flapper on this thing. It's so nice for that grade. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. So why did it sit for so long? And or I mean, I know you just said that people weren't like digging into it, but just yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I really even sessioned on it. I did a lot of solo sessions. I went up with my partner Alexis a lot, but really, no one was. People just pop in. A lot of times they wouldn't let me know, or sometimes they would, and I couldn't make it. But yeah, I was competing, doing World Cups, and kind of focused on the comp thing for a little bit. Still try and climb outside when I could, but yeah, no one was really like wanting to do it, I guess.
Did you know what's funny about that is so I was just traveling. I was on vacation. I went to some like super popular beach in Mexico, like Cabo San Lucas. And it was a nice beach, but it was just like inundated with tourists and inundated with people trying to sell me stuff. And all it made me think is how, dude, if I just walked like 5 more minutes to just, get a little bit away from everyone, there's probably a beach just as good and actually way better because no one will be there.
Yeah, no one will be there.
And I see this in climbing where like there are boulders or climbs or whatever that are just they're not the climb of the moment. And if you just are willing to like walk the extra 5 minutes or drive the extra 30 minutes, like you'll have world class things all to yourself. And it just strikes me as kind of something similar where I can't believe people weren't obsessed with this
Oh,
climb.
I know. Yeah, and people were obsessed, but no one was trying it. I don't know. It's just like the coolest movement. The rock is perfect. The landing's flat. Like it checks all the boxes. But I think it's just like waiting for the right person. And like when Noah and Nathaniel got psyched, just everyone got psyched. So that helps.
Okay, so you just said it checks all the boxes. Uh, you've you've been doing this for a while. You've been doing all the different facets of climbing that we all participate. It seems like at some point or another, coaching, route setting, competing, developing. You've climbed on other good climbs. Like, why did Defying Gravity actually hold your interest? Like, what drew you to it?
Yeah, just a movement in general. I think dynamic moves are like always something I want to do. I love cutting feet. I love yeah, kind of one arm ISOs. Um, the second jumps up there, you're getting like the fear factor a little bit, and then the top out's obviously pretty high off the ground. But just having that a clean face like that with perfect holds, skin friendly, like the most difficult moves you can imagine. And yeah, just having that like an hour from my house, like what else am I going to climb on? Like, why would I go anywhere else?
What did your partner Alexis think when you kept dragging her out there? Was she like, dude, this climb isn't that cool. Like, what are you doing? Or like, I get
No,
it.
no, she's a climber. She gets it for sure. Yeah, she just did a dark horse, which she had been working on for about 10 years. So she like off and on, but um, she understands the projecting process and the how it feels to actually accomplish one of those goals.
I hope you guys went out and celebrated something. You're like, okay, you did your 10-year goal. I did mine. Or were you just applying and scheming for what's next?
We celebrated, yeah, we for sure celebrated, but yeah, I don't know what's next. We both don't, I don't know. We're happy. We're content right now.
This is just totally out of left field, but I understand the draw to Defying Gravity and the movement, and I wonder if it's because we're from the same era of Chris Sharma being kind of a dynamic, like I like jumping and having my feet. I love having my feet cut, man.
Yeah.
And that's like bad climbing, but I love it. And I feel like that's why I associate with that era of like Americans. Well, really it was Chris, like trying hard and yelling and having his feet cut. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah.
Is that ring true for you?
Yeah, for sure. And just like I don't know, throughout the past 20 years, there have been people just doing insane like one arm swings, like Nolly on the Understanding. That's like one of my favorite videos. Just yeah, it just looks sick, and when you do it, it feels really cool to be like swinging around on some bad holds. I'm not all about like I can do tension moves, and I try to, but I just think it's so much more fun, like getting on Air Star or like getting on El Corazon or like just anything in Rocklands that has sky is amazing. I just love that type of climbing, just gymnastic, powerful, good hold stuff.
You're speaking my language, dude.
Yeah,
Those are all just beautiful. And yeah, for me, it's always this mix of there's there is just a straight up beauty element, just like when you walk around the corner and you see something, you're like, whoa, that's cool. But then and then you want ones that kind of suit your style and make you feel cool. There's something
exactly.
about
Yeah.
like specific moves that make you actually feel cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just like static lock offs for me. I don't know. It looks pretty cool, but it's not my strength.
Maybe if I had the kind of shoulders that look like Daniel's when he locks off, he makes it look very cool. His
Yeah,
shoulders are like bigger than his head. It's very
exactly.
static.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe another life. Uh, okay, you you sent, man. It took a few tries, but you sent, and just yeah, man. Take me to that day.
Yeah. So um, let me think about it all. Like it was kind of weird. I actually got talked into going on like a bike ride with my friends, and we did like 14 miles of mountain biking, which I don't know. I mountain bike a little bit, but kind of wrecked myself. We did like some big climbs and some hard trails, I guess, for this area. Pretty fun. Anyway, got talked into that, and then ended up climbing the next day when Nathaniel was going out, and we got there. I felt really bad warming up. Felt pretty tired. Um, Ended up just kind of taking a really slow warm up, um, doing just like a bunch of ISO hangs on the start hold, and then like lightly throwing myself with the jump move. I think I did like log jamming, which is to the right. It's like a V9 just to kind of warm up the body. And let's see, Noah, Sean, and Nathaniel were there. Oh, and Bear Cam was there. And eventually just started feeling a little bit better and tried the second jump move and kind of like somehow got it dialed from the previous session where I was really struggling to stick the second jump. So I did it like 2 or 3 times in a row, and I was like, okay, maybe this could happen. And um, yeah, basically just started to try and send, like, gave it Singos. I think I gave it probably like 5 or 6 in one go. I just like felt like my left hand was almost going to stay on. I was like, oh man, this could actually happen today. And finally, like, took a little break, pulled on, and just like blacked out. Just like I just like pulled on, stuck the move, and then everything else was just like it just felt unreal. I don't even remember the second jump at all. I do remember the top out because I hadn't rehearsed it in a couple of years. So there was no chalk on any of the slopers. Kind of struggled my way a little bit through the top out and managed to pull it off, luckily.
You're up there on the top. And that was part of the thing I really remember about the video where Daniel does it is it's windy. It looked intense. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're up there. Can you take me to that moment where you're like, you're topping out. You're like, oh, I'm doing it. Oh my God, am I not doing it?
Exactly. Yeah. I had like a second of doubt, and then I just like completely blocked it out. I just said, no, I'm not going to fall here. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. And luckily I did, because I could have like froze. I could have freaked out, which I normally am pretty good at top outs. Like, I can usually keep my head together, but this one was like, it meant so much more that I did have that second of doubt, and I just had to like completely ignore it and try and push through.
When you said you blacked out after sticking the first jump move right before doing the second, this was your third time sticking the move, or is your
Third time.
fourth time?
Yeah.
Third
Third
time.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm surprised to hear that you blacked out because sometimes when you, like in some ways, the second move became a big mental barrier because
Yep.
you knew you could do the third move, but then linking those together, you didn't know quite yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, I just kind of like learned a slightly different grip position. And then I also didn't pogo with my right leg like everyone else does. I think everyone pogos with their right leg. I ended up keeping it on and like kind of rotating into like a slight drop knee and then jumping. And I think that helped me a lot, just keep the left hand engaged throughout that jump and then stop the swing with like a left hand pinch. Where those guys, they have like, freak fingers, and they just like open hand this really bad edge and hold like a giant swing off of it. So I think just like learning those little things finally paid off, like just the micro beta that I needed.
Yeah, when you talk about this micro beta, whether it's the first move, the first foot, all the different things you tried, the second move too, like did you write these down? Like what's you was your process for building up all this knowledge over the years? You just let it be internal into your body? How'd you do that?
I think a lot of it was internal, especially for the first move. I think I kind of just settled on what I was going to do. And I had to like mess around with how I was pulling on, like how my shoulders are engaged. And I kind of think about doing like more of an L sit to pull on. So you're like pushing into the foot instead of like standing on the foot. That helped me a ton. And then for the second jump, I actually, before I sent, I did go back and watch some of the videos from previous years and just like looked at my hand position, looked at my body position, and half the time I would pogo and half the time I wouldn't. And I decided, well, if I wasn't doing the pogo back then, I should at least revisit that. And that ended up being kind of what unlocked the second move, at least from the start for me.
How often did you review footage of your attempts?
Not enough. Yeah, I think that was something else that I could have done better. Yeah, like I think after I sent it, I went back to look at a video of 2015, and I was just like in probably the best shape of my life, and I was just seriously rapid firing over and over again because it's such a unique boulder that trying to do one move, right, and you don't want to cool down too much, but you don't want to rapid fire. So I was giving it like maybe 2 or 3 minutes between each attempt, and I think taking more time and making each of those attempts count more would have been kind of a way for me to do it in under 11 years.
Considering it's one of the hardest moves in the world, perhaps you need more than 2 minutes
Yes.
rest.
Yes. But yeah, I think I just had like bad tactics. And for the longest time, I just didn't really think about the whole process and like where the end point is, because I thought it was just going to happen eventually. But I had to like have that mindset where, it's going to happen now because I'm 38 years old, and it's just going to get harder from here on out.
Don't say that. We're doing great. 38's the new 28,
Yeah, for sure.
which when I was 28, I thought was really old, by the way. Um, you said something about doing like an L sit, like thinking about when you put your foot on the start feet, that it was almost more like an L sit. And the reason why that stood out to me is like, I feel like I usually am trying to tell myself, no matter how steep it is, like imagine that you're standing on it. It's like the opposite of that. And this is something I always find interesting as I try harder and harder moves or really progress into well, or try to do some of the really hard moves out there, is that it's almost like you have to think about it differently. You
Yeah,
know, like you wouldn't want to tell a V3 person, hey, like do an L sit to get your phone. You'd be like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Any insight into that?
um, yeah, I think just for that move, like you get your shoulders more engaged, you get kind of more into an L sit. The foot is like really low. I think like Daniel and Sean can barely pull on reaching it, so it's a very low foot. But having the L sit makes it so when you generate for the move, your hips are already out from the wall a little bit more. Your chest is going to be into the wall though, and it cuts down the swing just like that tiny bit because the swing is it feels easy. We'll say easy, but it's like okay until you hit like the last 5% of the swing, and that's when everything just goes crazy, and you just have to figure out your body just has to react in a certain way.
Is this one of those moves where it's really not frustrating, but actually it makes you want to try again and again because you're like, that holds pretty good, and then you rip
Yeah,
off at the last moment.
exactly. It
I
feels
love
like the
those.
last moment. Yeah, it feels like the last moment, but you still have a ride after that because you have to figure out what to do with your lower body and how to stabilize with your left hand, and there's like a lot more going on. But yeah, I remember feeling close some days where I would just like grab the hold and engage and be like, oh, I'm close, and then it's like, no, I'm not even like I'm like only 90% through the swing.
So you just said Sean, and you said Daniel couldn't maybe reach that foot. Sean, was this Sean Bailey or Sean Rabitou? Sean
Sean
Rabitou.
Rabitou,
Sean
yeah.
Rabitou. So I don't. They haven't done that climb, if I remember correctly. They haven't done Defying Gravity yet.
Sean Rabitou has not done it yet. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and Daniel has, of course, of course.
yeah, yeah,
I guess the reason why I'm pointing that out is that, like, Austin, you're a beast. I know all the climbs you've climbed. I know how hard those are. Uh, what was it like seeing people of Sean's caliber fail, and like how did you like have the confidence? Like, I mean, maybe I just have that imposter syndrome, but I know that if I'm climbing next to Sean Rabitou and he's struggling with a climb, I'm gonna be like, ah, oh,
yeah.
Josh,
So
like,
that's
yeah,
it's impossible. Yeah.
literally. Yeah.
No, I climbed with Sean a bit through the years and like the competitions and World Cups, and we hung out at some point, so I felt pretty comfortable around him. Daniel, obviously, we've competed together, and Nathaniel. So it wasn't, I know it's a difficult climb. He's a size where he either has to kind of come up with new beta or do Daniel's beta, and he was trying to use like a higher right foot. It was like a tiny edge, but he could like pull his hips over just enough to get up to the catch hold. Um, it's yeah, it's just a unique boulder because like look at all the different ways people are doing it now, and there could be more ways to do this climb, which is pretty crazy because it's one move. So
I actually always think that's the mark of a really good boulder. I could also say a really well set boulder where there's a bunch of different ways and they're all freaking hard,
yeah,
and you have find your own journey, make it work for you.
yeah, it's pretty special. It's yeah, pretty unique just to have that for one move, and then adding like the sit start into it. It just like changes, like the setups are going to be easier or harder depending on what your beta is for that jump.
Okay, I really want to ask about the SIP. I want to point out one more thing about your success on it that I think is really cool. Where you said, "Hey, I'm comfortable around Sean. I'm comfortable around Daniel. I've climbed with them, but my hunch is it still is, or it would still be intimidating when my friends that I climb with who are professionals and clearly better than me. I still sometimes kind of benchmark myself against them. It's like, oh well, like he flashed it, so I can probably maybe do it. But if they like really struggle on it or can't do it, it's hard for me to put myself into that position of having that confidence. And then on top of that, you spent a lot of years. Maybe you are getting older, and I can say this because we're the same age. I don't know if I'm physically worse than I was before, but I think that what happens is I'm so busy, it's tough for me to be in as good shape as I was when I was climbing more.
Yeah,
And that like all of those things like can push against you, but clearly physically you were capable because you did it. And just I want to hand it to you for you know busting through that mental stuff because there's more going on than just like physically
yeah,
Austin can do
not
it.
just climbing. Yeah, yeah, the life work balance. Yeah, and luckily I really didn't climb as much as I had been before. I was just resting my body more and trying to like really focus um, like executing and doing the boulder. So it was, yeah, pretty special.
Yeah. On that note, that was pretty special. I just watched the video of you sending, and the two things that stood out to me is you got to the top and there wasn't a big yell.
Pretty chill.
Also, I don't know if that was Alexis filming, but
Yeah,
she didn't
she's
sound
like,
like that psyched.
I know she was. Yeah, we're all just kind of in disbelief, to be honest. That was like, it was 4 hours into the session. I didn't think I was going to do it, but I just had that little bit of hope, and it just felt unreal. Like no one, we both were just like in shock. It was a really weird feeling. I don't usually like yell on top of boulders. I don't get overhyped or anything. So, but this one, I just had to sit down and just like take it all in. It was pretty, yeah, the 11-year journey, and that people rarely come out on top in that type of situation.
Yeah, your Instagram caption was uh, best boulder ever, best moment ever. Am I
Best
right there?
experience
Best
ever. Yeah,
experience ever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unpack that a little bit for me.
Um,
Well, the best boulder I think we got into, but
yeah, yeah. It's my favorite boulder. Yeah, just the overall, it was a long journey, and just everything I've learned throughout that journey, I'll be able to take to the next project too. But I think having so much time and so many attempts, so many days, so much hiking, you know, it just made it, yeah, the biggest moment of my climbing career for sure. And it all paid off. It was just, a roundabout way of finally getting the thing done. But yeah, I ended up on top of it. That's, yeah.
had you ever projected any, or yeah, what was your longest project other than that?
I did, let's see. There's this thing up at 11 Mile Reservoir. It's called Shaolin Style that I did probably like, or no, sorry, it's called Tiger Style. Shaolin Style is to the left of it, and it's really sick. I did Tiger Style, and I thought it was 8B plus V14, but turns out it got downgraded. I used a bad foot. I used a lower foot than everyone else, so it got downgraded to V13. But I think I had about 20 days into that one.
That's quite a while, and it's also different because you were the first ascensionist. So I feel like there's,
Yeah, I'd unlocked some stuff, and the rock wasn't very good, so it was like kind of like changing every go, and then now it's finally settled into a good state. But probably like 5 sessions were just like getting the rock to be, in a climbable space.
yeah, that thing looks really good too. By the way, I've seen the videos
Yeah,
of
that
those.
one's
So best experience ever. Sorry, I have it written down. I should be saying it's not best moment, best experience ever. And it seems like when you say that, is that closely related to the fact that it's the best boulder ever? Is it related to the fact that it took a long time? Like,
I think, yeah, mainly the time aspect is just the whole journey. It was, so long, and I think that's what I meant by that. It's just like the amount of time, all the hurdles I'd overcome, whether it was like injuries or foot breaking or just life stuff happening. Just all came down to like that one day, like out of the blue, where everything just came together, and it probably wasn't the ideal day or ideal conditions. My body was tired. It just like all ended up at that moment, which I think just made it, yeah, mean that much more to me.
so what does this tell you about the joy of climbing in general? Was it just an exercise, an extreme delayed gratification? Is it more about, the process and the journey rather than the end? Like, what did you take away from it all?
I think so. It was never my goal to like just climb it because it was V15. My goal was just to do the boulder, and I I would go back to it every season, wanting to get on it and wanting to try it. But I'd also go to Rocklands, or I would go to Switzerland, or I would go to Red Rock or something like that. So I'd always have these other areas to climb at, and I would try and do boulders there, obviously. So I think for Defying Gravity, it was, yeah, just the whole journey, and like just the whole, I don't know, said a few times now, the whole process was just really special.
Yeah, you crushing Rocklands, man. Um, does this mean that you're going to try to mimic this whole process again? Are you looking to do another 10-year journey or not?
Yeah, I don't think at my age that's the best call. Maybe, but yeah, I'd like to climb some more V14s. That would probably be a goal. And I don't know. I just like going to new areas, and I like doing like just good boulders. I don't care what grade they are. I'll just climb whatever looks cool and whatever classics are at the area. That's like really what I find joy in for climbing is climbing on new rock, climbing, like seeing whatever culture or environment you're in. Um, there's just so much more to climbing than just the climbs, you know. It's like the whole lifestyle part of it that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Going to Rocklands is very different than, I mean, well, it's just not that it's in Africa. It's just it's different than going to Red Rocks
Yeah.
or Rocky Mountain National Park. That whole vibe is super different too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess knowing that you're 38 and I'm too, which is not ancient, man. I think I did a podcast with Martin Keller, and he did his first V16 at just about 46. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's, I mean, you should play your own game and not compare yourself to others, but it's nice to know when someone's treaded there before you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Definitely.
it doesn't seem to me like it would be fair for you or for me to say about you that you don't have your best days in front of you, but you climbed on Defying Gravity is one of the most beautiful. I mean, I think we agree on this. It's one of the coolest climbs out there in the world. It's one of the hardest climbs out there. Probably for you, it's probably going to be one of the harder grades that you climb in your life. And then just that sheer time scale of process, it's going to be tough for you to outdo 11-year project.
Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely.
So what does it feel like kind of looking at your, when you sit down and have a sip of wine and look at your climbing resume, watch those videos of yourself crushing, like, how does it feel to maybe think that like, hey, this may be the crowning jewel of my climbing career?
I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I might be able to pull something out. I just need to find like a climb that motivates me in the same way, which is definitely out there. Just need to see if I can get to those areas. But really, I'm very pleased with like what I've done with climbing, and I try not to take it too seriously. I do love the sport, but I always try and keep it fun for the most part. And yeah, going back to Defying Gravity year after year was by far the most I've invested into probably anything. And yeah, I think it's a good way to not end my career, but I'm happy if that's like the best part of my career.
Yeah, I've tried to phrase that to not make it like a negative thing,
Yeah, no,
like it's incredible, man. I'm
just not going to be another 10-year project. I don't think there could be, but I don't know if I want to take that on.
Yeah, I want to poke a little bit more on this because I feel like I'm in a similar situation where I have some goals maybe this season, and hopefully that I can wrap up before 10 years goes by.
Yeah.
And I wonder to myself, what's it gonna be like being on potentially a downslope? Again, I don't want to say that because it wouldn't surprise me at all, and probably you even less. Where if you're like, oh, I did another V15. Oh, I did. It was cool. I liked it. It suited me, and I did actually in 10 sessions instead of 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but like, how do you wrestle with that that push that we all have to be the best you can be, climb the coolest thing, climb the hardest thing, and then like there's a potential that maybe that you already check that box.
Yeah, we still have sport climbing, so I could always go back and revisit that. I don't know. I've always enjoyed sport climbing. I feel like I'm okay at it, but I just have never really. I don't think I've tried anything harder than 14A. So that would be like the next step for me. As far as bouldering goes, I think you can always find like really cool moves, really fun climbs at any grade. Um, you just have to like kind of pick them out. And maybe I won't be doing like crazy dynamic stuff. Maybe I will settle into more of like static climbing. Um, but it's hard to say. I don't know.
All right. Hopefully I wasn't too brutal. Now it's like it's a real thing that I mean, people who are 18 won't understand what I'm saying, and I'm just
Well, yeah, I think that's something good we could talk about. Is like that's kind of I went through that with competition climbing already, where I decided to stop doing competitions. I was doing like the Cup Series circuit and was making finals pretty consistently throughout those comps, and then decided to take a little break. And I was like, actually, I kind of like this. I might just stop. And then I did like one more Cup Series competition after that. And yeah, just like letting that go was pretty hard for me, but I just kind of climbed outside a little bit more and like maybe worked a little bit more or had other hobbies. But yeah, going back to like, maybe like tapering off from like doing really hard boulders. Like I don't have a problem with that since I kind of already visited that with the competition aspect.
That makes sense. And I think that when we're talking about it and it's abstract, sometimes it feels a certain way. And, you know, it's like, oh, am I letting go of X, Y, or Z? But then in the moment, like if I were to be climbing at rifle with you, you know, maybe that's
Yeah,
a
in
next,
10
you're like,
years.
but you're like, this is sick. Like, you know, I'm trying to do Kurt Smith's slice of life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that it's sometimes this is that whole struggle of like grades and achievement versus experience. And just when you're out there having fun, like it's just
Yeah.
fun, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's something you learn as you get older too, is just, you can kind of let go of the competitive aspect, or maybe, obviously you're still going to have goals, but goals are going to be maybe like a little bit lower than they used to be. But yeah, you don't have to care you don't have to do it for anyone other than yourself. So there's no reason to like really try that hard.
you say that, and I totally agree with you, but 18-year-old Josh did not agree with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 18-year-old Austin didn't agree either.
And then somewhere along the way, you just care less and less. You're just doing your thing. And I love I thought it was hilarious when you said sport climbing, because that's always this discussion that me and my buddies have. We're like, okay, once we can't boulder hard, we're going to sport climb. Once we can't sport climb hard, we're going to trad climb. Once we can't trad climb hard, we're going to hike. And then once we can't hike, we're going to race cars.
Race
you just
cars,
have to sit
nice.
there. Yeah. So
That's a good progression.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay. On that note of progression, there is a lot of activity on the internet of people trying the sit to Defying Gravity, just like it's sat for 10 years. And now everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, a handful of the strongest climbers that have ever lived are climbing on Defying Gravity, climbing it quickly. And now they have their eyes on the sit. What do you think about, well, actually, let's just go back to when you first looked at it. Did you notice the sit? What was that
Yeah.
even in your eye, in your purview?
Yeah. It's obviously there. It would be a hard transition into the start of the climb, but yeah, definitely saw it there. And it was cool because when Daniel came out to try it again, that was a month or two ago, we talked about it, and he mentioned like V15 was so hard at the time. Like we couldn't even fathom, climbing into that and then doing a V15 after the climb into it. So it's just like we needed to wait for the right time and the right climbers to have the vision or the psych to start projecting it.
That is such a good example of us standing on the shoulders of the generation before us, where uh, I, it would be, this would be some classic internet argument, but it would be tough for me to say like Daniel Woods or Jimmy Webb of 2013 were weaker than Nathaniel and Noah and Adam. Like I don't know if this is like a basketball debate of like Michael Jordan versus wow, I can't,
LeBron
Kobe,
James.
like Kobe or LeBron James.
Yeah.
You can tell what sport I play. It's just like you can't quite like maybe if Daniel had come along and Nathaniel had put up the stand, he might have been like, oh, you guys, what if we started down here? Like,
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting how people come in with fresh eyes. But yeah, what's it like seeing these new kids? Because you saw the kids of the time. Well, you were one of the kids of the time back in 2013. Mm-hmm. What's it look like having those guys climb on it?
Yeah, it's been awesome. They're all really motivated, and they're obviously very strong. So it's pretty cool to see not much psych around the boulder, and just having a climb that hard so close to us, because like the Wheelers are living in Colorado Springs now, so they're here for school. So just seeing all the psych and the motivation to go up and try a hard climb because it's only an hour away is like kind of the same thing I had been doing this whole time. It was a hard climb for me though. It wasn't like potential V17. But yeah, the climb itself it adds a lot. It makes it very difficult to execute the crux move from the start. So
Don't you feel like as a setter, well, as a climber, I actually feel like there's something really cool about, well, I'm just going to say a low start or a sit. I'll say a low start that pulling into that it's a different climb than doing the high start or the stand
mhm.
start. I'm not saying that exactly right, but maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I think this one's really special because it is like the crux of the sit start is linking into the start holds of the stand start. So that's going to be very difficult to get because when you're just pulling on, you can grab them exactly how you want them and have your body in the perfect position in order to do like the V15 crux move or V14 crux move. Um, so I think that in itself, like sometimes you can have like an easy transition into the other start and then have like a couple filler moves and then get into the crux. This one is like on you the second you get into the original start holds. Um, so that that adds a lot of difficulty for this one in my eyes. And I think when Nathaniel does it, he's going to do a really good breakdown of like how all the moves feel and how the whole process went for him. And I think that will be really cool for people to see because it's not like a straightforward like sit start. It adds like quite a bit of difficulty.
I love that. What you said made me think that it goes and it's going to go, and I just that makes me happy. I don't know, unlocking anytime. I don't know why exactly, but I like seeing new hard climbs go up. Like
Yeah,
there's just something nice about that being added to our sport.
yeah, and it's a perfect progression from like the two generations, like the V15 to V17 potentially. So it's just really impressive. Like the kids out there just want to climb that grade. They want to climb at that level, so they're going to do whatever they need to climb at that level.
What do you think about the low start as a line? Like it, it always struck me that Defying Gravity was amazing because you started really, high overhead standing. I like climbs like that. I don't like getting
Yeah,
in the dirt, but what do
yeah.
you think of the line as a sit start?
It is a proper sit. It's a perfect start hold. It does have a couple traversing moves down low, and then you like enter the business after like 3 or 4 moves, I think. Um, Overall, it's just an impressive line. It's very very difficult, and if you're looking for a hard climb, it's a hard climb. The traverse takes away a little bit, but I think if you're climbing at that level and you're not going to find like a V15 on every boulder or V17 on every boulder. So it's there, and the rock is good, and the moves are interesting. There are a lot of foot transitions. There's a lot going on with this climb, so it's yeah, it's full value, which
Ah,
is good.
that's so cool, man. I also love when hard climbs are magnificent, not just shoved into a cave or something. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say any of this stuff. It's just cool. It sounds like a great addition. And so 10 years is a long time, but it's not that long. You were out there, that, that Defying Gravity was next level. I mean, V15, that, and
Yeah.
also like that move is still arguably one of the hardest moves in the world. I don't know how we rank that, but
Yeah.
arguably. Um,
Yeah.
what do now you've been hanging out at the Boulder, you've been trying it, new generation comes, some of them are making short work of it, which is mind blowing. And now they're working on something that is maybe 2 notches harder to, as an entire line.
Yep.
Like, what does that make you think of the next 10 years? Like, because if
Oh,
you asked Daniel 10 years ago, he'd be like, oh no, dude, this is hard. And now I bet you if you asked Nathaniel, he'd be like, dude, this is hard. And what does this tell us about, like, is there going to be another 2 jumps in 10 years?
yeah, it's hard to say. I think I think the biggest difference from like my generation or our generation and the newer generation is just like the training tools that they have, and like obviously starting at a young age, which we kind of did, but having like the boards and the board community is progressing the sport so quickly, especially for that style of climb. And that's why obviously like there's some of the best board climbers and like Olympic athletes that are climbing on it, but yeah, they're doing the boulder quickly because they've been training for that for like 15 years, 10 years or something, just like on repetition on those boards. So it would be impressive to see another jump, but I don't know what that's going to look like. I can't even imagine, like, if the first 4 intro moves were more difficult and then you had to do like a middle crux and then you had to do the V14 jump and then the V11 jump at the end. That's the only way I could see it being more difficult, but that's kind of like, that's very much next level. And I don't know where you would find it.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, is finding it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also always interested in not just stacking difficulty, but could there be a harder single move? Because obviously stacking difficulty is more difficult. But just to go back to that, looking at generations past, like, has there been that much progression in like a single hard move? And I would say yes, but
Yeah.
I like, how much further can we go? I don't know. This is
Well, just
impossible.
watching Colin on it, we can go much harder. We can go way harder than that because he just floated it. He made it look so easy. Um, and it's just like that. Like, what I guess the catch hold would have to get much worse or something like that. Which Shaolin, like, I was in Red Rocks last week and I looked at it and that looks really hard. Obviously, it's kind of like Defying, not as steep, but it's like more of an accuracy. You have to be extremely accurate to get into the hold, and then it has a jump to, like, 2 back-to-back jumps as well. So
When you watched, I guess, were you there when Colin did it?
no, I wasn't. I wasn't there.
When you watch his video of him doing it, like, how does it look to you versus your attempts, or and sending, like, it kind of looks different to me, and even how Noah does it looks a little different to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, can you help me pick out like what looks so different about the way those guys do it?
Just the campus method in general.
I mean,
The
campus, or just even just how their body looks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it looks different, man.
Yeah, they're board climbers. I'm going to keep going back to the board. Their fingers are so strong. So that start hold for me, yeah, it took me like multiple sessions to like be able to pull off the ground and actually generate to the hold. So those guys are just so used to grabbing, you know, these terrible holds on a steep wall, and they're so used to, getting their body into the correct position to catch a one hand like swing hold. And what's impressive, so Nathaniel keeps the left hand on and Colin also kept the left hand on. So just that sheer amount of, like, it's kind of like you're above the hold, this open hand strength to keep applying that pressure throughout that move it requires a lot of finger strength. So it's just they're on a whole nother level, like the best athletes in the country or world.
I know there's a bunch of different start holds, but can you kind of like equate what that start hold is like in either like a rung size, or like if you were like, oh, it's like a Technic scarab or something, like.
Yeah, it's hard because they're a little inconsistent. They're like sweet spots for each finger, but they're close. They're probably like 3/4 pad, and the wall is at a 50 or 55, and they're like kind of at the same angle as the wall. And then there's like a couple little dips that you can kind of work your fingers into. So that's for the match start, and then for the span start, it's like a big 3-finger block that you can kind of pinch, but it's really sloping, and the rock is like glass too. So that's the foot holds glass, the hands are glass, and then those guys can just like pull in and campus, which that is the hardest thing for me. Like, I could pull up, but they're pulling in and campusing and getting up to the hold with like full shoulder engagement and keeping their left hand on. So it's just a whole nother level of what they're doing.
What about that rung that you catch? I say rung, but what about that hold that you catch?
It's pretty good. Like, back in the day, I could like do a one arm on it. Like, if your body's staying still and you catch, there's like a little thumb spot, and it's like really good for 3 fingers, and then kind of the pinky goes away. Um, it would be like a slightly in cut, like 20 mil maybe. And yeah, those guys make it look like it's a jug.
Well, that really goes into that whole thing of perfect beta and jumping to the right thing, where when you have stuck that move, did it feel easy? Is it one of those kind of moves, or?
It is, yeah. Yeah, if everything goes perfectly, like so many times I would I would generate and feel so good throughout the movement, but I would over generate and my left hand would just completely dry fire. Um, and those were like, oh, I should be able to do it. Like I feel so good, but it was like learning the subtleties of the move that took so long.
That was actually one of the most impressive things for me watching Colin's video is that the sixth, seventh, and his send on the eighth attempt looked identical.
Yep.
Just,
Yep.
I mean, I feel like I could protracted his angle of body, just identical. I was impressed by that.
That's yeah, that's an Olympic athlete right there. They just give him 4 minutes next time, and he should be able to do the boulder.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with some other guys, and they're like, "Is it just that he's so strong? Like, just that he's overpowering it?" And there's kind of like this bounce back and forth in our discussion of yes, and then no, because look at how he's doing it the same way. Which strength is a component of being able to execute and do it in a similar way, but there's something a little more than that of like coordination and well technique, and so yeah, good job, Colin. Good job.
Yeah, yeah, quick work of it, and he is like he competed at our competition a couple weeks ago that we hosted at our gym, and he just is like on another level. He um, his strength and his coordination are just beyond what most people can do.
So tell me a little bit about your gym and like a local a local competition like that then has people like Colin coming through and setting for them. Like just what's that whole side of your climbing life like?
Yeah, so we hosted a competition. It's called Battle of Brawn. We hosted it on November 16th. It was really good. We had a great turnout. We had quite a few strong athletes come out for it. Colin Duffy competed, obviously. A bunch of kids from like all the collegiate climbers came down for it. Vale Everett was there. Um, really good turnout, and yeah, basically just a on-site round, or sorry, qualifying round in the morning, and then a finals at night, on-site finals. So it was setting for it was difficult for me this year. I had to basically my mindset was if I can get close to doing the move, then they can probably do it easily. And a lot of coordination stuff, a lot of like pretty technical climbing as far as comp climbing goes. And then I set like a kind of a power rig for one of the boulders. And Colin did the power boulder on his last attempt in the qualifying round. So it took him 10 attempts, but he did it. And it was just like mind blowing to see like what he's capable of. He's just so strong.
Wow, 10 attempts deep on a power block at the end of a qualifying round. How hard do you think that thing was? That I mean, geez, for a qualifying.
I set it to be I set it to be like V13 or V14. So
I was curious when you called it Battle of the Brawn if it was geared more towards power blocks, but sounds like you still did some kind of coordination.
yeah, we try and find the mix. We don't want it to be too modern comp climbing, but we try and find the balance there.
Well, you've been in the gym world and business for well most of your life. It sounds like your whole life. How has that changed? How has your setting style or how has the gym setup evolved throughout that time?
Yeah, we basically because the walls were all we had like a old lead cave. We had top ropes and like really short lead climbing that probably is unsafe now. But we had like rocks that were on the ground instead of pads. So the gym opened in 1992, so it was one of the early gyms in the country. But we've been like slowly we expanded twice. We put in like new bouldering walls. We only have like a couple of the original walls still up. We put in like a really nice spray wall. We have a tension board 2, moon board, just all the training equipment you could want. So we've like attracted a lot of climbers that just come down from like Boulder or Denver just for the day to train on our climbs. And yeah, we just tried to like make it more of a modern like climbing gym that's focused on outdoor climbing and competition climbing. So it's been working out well for us.
Have you seen a big growth in climbing in that time? And has the demographic of those climbers changed?
Oh yeah, it's yeah, year to year. Well, until COVID hit, obviously we were doing really well, and then COVID hit, and then we're like doing much better. But I'm not seeing the same rate of growth after COVID, which is pretty interesting. But we don't offer sport climbing, so that's going to be like always one of those things that makes it a little bit harder. We're not a huge city, so. Uh, but yeah, progression of the sport, just all the hold shapes and the fiberglass. Like we used to have like the concrete holds from Entrepris and old e grips that would flex. Like I have some of those on my wall back here. Just some of these like holds from the late '90s that you know it's now we have like massive fiberglass holds we're putting on the wall.
Yeah, I still kind of have a thing for the way the older holds feel. I don't like how fiberglass feels. I don't
Right.
know. I just
Yeah.
although a friend of mine who's an amazing setter, Moses Potter, he said something to me a long time ago when we first started getting it that he liked it because it kind of seemed to force you almost to take what you get when you grab it. Like readjusting doesn't seem to
Readjusting isn't.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he felt like that was a good skill to train, but I still don't
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. It takes a lot of skin, and like as a gym owner, they do last longer than polyurethane. So I don't know. And like all the newer shapes seem to be out of some type of textured plastic now.
I will say I definitely appreciate when I would have to haul bigger holds up that when they're fiberglass, they weigh
Oh yeah.
just a
Oh yeah.
fraction. Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I do not miss pea gravel on the ground in climbs
Yeah.
that would get into your climbing shoe and then you'd like fall and you'd land on basically like a rock in your shoe. And
Exactly.
yeah, not the sight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Austin, man, really amazing journey through climbing. I think it's so cool that you got to see it all coalesce in one climb. I know that it's not the end of the year climbing. You're going to have a 10-year sport climbing project. Um, and I just think it's cool that you did get to tick that box because I mean, it's not like it doesn't seem like your climbing life would be any less rich had you not done it, but it must have been nice to kind of see it all come together in a moment and just psyched me. I appreciate you sharing it with me too.
Yeah, definitely. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone, and that's Austin. How do you go from good to great?
I guess I have to say perseverance is the only thing that I have for this to contribute to this. Um, yeah, just believing like you can, like a long-term project is going to have its mental hurdles and its physical hurdles, and life can get in the way. But I think, yeah, just stick with it and know it's possible. And one day everything should come together and things will work out.
Curious, did you decide to make it a long term project, or was it
Dude, I
just
should have done it like 11 years ago. No, I just kept going back. Like I said, yeah, it just felt like the thing to do, and I felt like I could probably do it one day, and yeah.
yeah, you say persevere? I'm curious. Did you have moments where you're just like, screw this, I'm done?
I don't think I did, which is pretty crazy. I never like I had very bad sessions on it. Even last year, after Nathaniel and Charlie left, the temperatures dropped and it was like too cold for me to climb on because I'm just trying one move. And I thought there was no way that like really bad sessions. I wasn't sticking the second jump once or the first jump, and I was like barely staying on the wall. And with good conditions and everything else, that makes a huge difference for me. But never felt like I was going to give up. I just kind of kept going. Maybe not the smartest thing, but I don't know.
Oh, there's something interesting there about just being cool. So why not climb on it? And it's like, it's funny because when I hear the word perseverance, I often think about like cracking the whip on yourself, but does not, you, that does not work over years of effort. You can't be cracking the whip on yourself. It
Right.
maybe works for a couple of tries or a couple of sessions, but not over the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah. Just have to have the right mindset. And that's basically all I learned was the mental part of it and just fine tuning everything. It was huge.
Well, it's interesting that even that concept of perseverance came to fruition in that last session where you didn't even feel good in the beginning and then you still sent. And there's something I hear that again and again.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense. And like I was just waiting for the time, I guess, and that happened to be the time. And I guess I have some control of that, or I like to think I have control of that, but I really feel like maybe I don't. And yeah, everything just came together.
Yeah, I've had a few sends where I had I had a terrible day and felt awful, and it worked out. I've also had sends in sport climbing where I will bumble something easy down low and waste a ton of energy and be like, oh, I'm screwed. I mean, I just flubbed it. And I go, well, I'm just going to keep on climbing and then send.
And then still do it. Yeah.
I don't know what lesson there is exactly. I mean, I guess it's persevere, but I feel like I somehow, yeah, it's like, how do you work that into success over and over again? And maybe just the answer is still to persevere.
Yeah, maybe. Hope so.
Good stuff, Austin. I am psyched for you. I'm psyched to see that boulder getting the attention it deserves. And I think it's cool that you're still kind of going out there and in the mix a little bit with it. You know, do you have your eyes set on the Sit as well?
I might go out once or twice, but I don't think I'm going to project this in. Spend a lot of time at that boulder. I'm pretty happy with just a stand for now.
All right, man. Yeah, 100+ sessions. That's enough. And yeah, thanks for sharing the journey and it's some inspiration for me specifically, to be honest. You know, we're the same age. And I would love a little crown jewel to add to my cap. But, you know, I think that the lesson that I heard from you is keep showing up and enjoy the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right. Take care. Thanks, man. Loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.